Hi, this is Cynthia Gerhardt, Treasurer of the Society of Pediatric Psychology, and today's date is April 5th, and we are at the 50th anniversary of SPPAC 2019, and I'm sitting here with Dr. Donald K. Routh, and we're going to spend some time talking a little bit about his perspective of SPP over the years. So, Dr. Routh, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I graduated from University of Pittsburgh in 1967, and I did a psychology internship under the supervision of Logan Wright. He's the one who recruited me to pediatric psychology.
Oh, wow.
And so that was right at the beginning there. Mm-hmm. And I actually took a job which was in a program to train pediatric psychologists. And among my students there was a fellow named Denny Droder.
Oh, goodness.
And so he turned out to be a good one. And
indeed.
Although it just doesn't seem right that you outlive your graduate student. But anyway, he was a very successful person. And I guess I ran for secretary-treasurer of the society pretty early on and just sort of went up the line and graduated to be the president of it and was the editor and so on. So I had a very active early career in the field.
And how did you get involved in SPP at that time then?
Well, Logan Wright and Lee Salk and Dorothea Ross were the ones who kind of put the society together and decided for it to be a society. And then there was a woman named Gail Gardner, who was editor of their first newsletter. And she also turned out to be also a mentor of Denny Droder. She supervised his postdoc. And so I just, got involved in it and was very immersed in it for a good while.
And you were one of the early proponents, or you were key in starting our first journal. Is that correct?
Well, D.N. Willis was the one who founded the journal. Okay. I sort of came aboard within about a year after that.
Okay.
And I had 6 years as a journal editor.
Yes.
And that seemed to me the most important thing that I'd done at that point. So I was pretty interested in it. And I stayed with it for a long time. I was diagnosed with cancer at age 62, though, and my job was then not any longer to be director of clinical training or anything of that kind, but to get well from cancer, which I did.
Which we're glad of.
Yes.
We're very glad for.
And but then, as I said, in my retirement, I was involved in history and sort of out of the loop of pediatric psychology. So I'm now experiencing it from a Rip Van Winkle point of view.
It's a very different organization now.
Oh, it's grown and it's been thrived. It's done wonderfully.
Tell us about those early years, though, because I think some of us, it would be very hard to imagine what it was like when we didn't even have a journal. And JPP is such a flagship.
Well, even to
for
get
the
it started as
now.
an organization was a little bit of a challenge,
right.
and to get the idea that we needed to meet together, periodically. We had one very memorable meeting in Oklahoma City when there's an ice storm, and so we survived some challenges, I guess you would say.
Great. So there were a lot of hurdles that you overcame in the beginning, and it was a small group of very determined scientists and clinicians that were really the foundation of the organization.
Well, it just spread easily because for example, Carolyn Schroeder had been a fellow graduate student of mine, and she sort of got into the field through my influence at first. And there was a fellow named Gary Meseboff who was associate editor of the journal at one point, and he also was a postdoc. So got a lot of people involved in the thing.
You started bringing others in, and they brought others in, and it's grown.
Yes.
To now we have one of our largest conferences we've ever had.
It's amazing to see a conference of this size and so well run.
Well, where do you see SPP going from your perspective? Because you've had a long view of this now.
Well, I would be the last to try to predict what's going to happen. I think it's doing great, and and therefore it must keep on doing what it's doing.
So we should stay on the on the forward path.
Right.
I have a question for you. So we really invest a lot in our young trainees,
Right.
and our students. What would you want our young students or our early PhD psychologists or faculty members to know?
Ooh. Well, the field is so diverse and so rich. I know, Carolyn Schroeder was involved early on in primary care, and I keep hearing about how that's important for psychology in general. It seems like being involved in healthcare is something that everybody in the field probably has an interest in.
Yes. So we do all have a common interest in promoting the health of children,
Right.
and that's a path to stay on. That's always been at the heart of SPP.
Right.
So one final question for you, because you've been
Okay.
so great and gracious to sit with me today. What's it like being here on SPP's 50th birthday?
Well, it's really
Could you
thrilling.
imagine?
It's really nice to see it happen. And but more a matter of sitting back and watching what other people are doing at this point.
So you've had a nice time enjoying,
Right.
observing,
It's been a very
and seeing
enjoyable
what's
conference.
happening.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we really appreciate it. It's just been a pleasure having you here. It
Okay.
really is a treat.
Thanks for your interest.
Thank you so much.